I have spoken of my best friend, Billy, several times to you in the past. Billy and I have been best friends. We've been together for over 40 years now. And as such, we have shared all of the high points and the low points of our lives: births, deaths, marriages, divorces, and children. Billy has 3 kids, Brian, Julia, and Erin. And I've known all these kids, these 3 kids, since their births. I changed Brian's diapers. I watched Julia grow up into a beautiful young woman, and I got pictures of Jeff with Erin as they're pretty much the same age and they grew up together. Brian, Julia, and Erin are my other kids, just like Billy is Jeff's other dad. Yesterday, Julia married Nelson. It was a wonderful afternoon. I had the honor of escorting Billy's mom to her pew as I escorted her down the aisle. The ceremony took place in a Catholic church, and I got to admit to you that when I found out that it was a high mass, I kind of cringed. High masses can go on for a couple of hours, but this one ended in under an hour. I don't want to hear about it now. If they can end in under an hour, our services go as long as they can. The homily offered during the service really struck a chord with me, a very loud chord. This was a difficult week for me in some of the things that I had to attend to. I had a trial on Thursday that took all day and into the evening to complete. I was representing a 14-year-old boy in a custody fight between his parents, and these are not pleasant exchanges, as you might imagine, and it took forever to get through it. I did several visitations to make sure that I could touch base with folks here in our congregations, and tried without too much success to even have a personal life. That was not in the cards this week. And then Baton Rouge happened, and then Falcon Heights happened, and then Dallas happened. One right after the other. And I'm thinking to myself, what do I do with this? It wasn't just 2 weeks ago that we talked about Orlando. Am I supposed to do it again? How many more times can I possibly talk about the same issue? I gotta tell you, there's a part of me that said, yeah, you gotta do it again. And you gotta do it again, and you gotta do it again, and you gotta do it again until we get some change. But I will tell you, it's exhausting. And it's frustrating. So this week I tried to do something different. I tried to think of things that we can do. Something affirmative. Something that shows that these kinds of acts will not defeat us. Something that shows that God is still at work in a world full of turmoil. One idea that I did think of was putting together a 24-hour prayer vigil. Still might think about doing this. I want to call, as we said, we're trying to think of things to do with all of the churches that have been involved or were involved last week. It's an idea that I'm going to at least discuss with them, and to have a prayer go round the clock until we really effect some change. You know how I believe in the power of prayer. But somehow, even prayer was beginning to fall short in my heart. We need to think of something we can do. Something that is affirmative. Then came yesterday's homily. Now I'm going to give credit where credit is due. Father Michael Paris of St. Patrick's Church in Rockville talked about these glimpses we get of God's all-encompassing love for us. And these glimpses are all over. Now, yesterday, we experienced Julia's and Nelson's love for one another. That is a glimpse of God's all-encompassing love for us. Father Michael talked about the sacrifice that Jesus made for us as another glimpse of God's all-encompassing love for us. And I thought the imagery that he used was just terrific. He used the image of little windows. Little windows. These little windows are the opportunities that we find through which we can get the glimpses he discussed. And I really, really liked that imagery. Little windows. We can either choose to look through the little windows and get those glimpses of that God shows us, or we can turn our backs and ignore those glimpses we can get when we look through those little windows. I loved it. It's terrific. Still not enough. There was something missing. Something affirmative. Something that we can do. So, like any good preacher, I turn to today's gospel lesson, Jesus' parable of the Good Samaritan. A very familiar story, one that each of us can recite pretty much by heart. But you know, there's a lot going on in that parable. Jesus absolutely knows what he's doing when he names the actors in this particular story. First, there's the priest that passes by this man in need on the other side of the road. He's a priest. Why does he not stop? He doesn't stop because in his culture, if he were to help this man, he would become unclean. And the priest would have to subject himself to a ritualized cleansing so that he could go then back into the temple. Doesn't want to have to hassle with that. So he passes by the man in need. Then there comes the Levite. Now the Levite was just in a hurry and would be thoroughly inconvenienced by stopping to help. I've got much better things to do, much more important things to do. You know what a Levite is? He's a lawyer. Typical lawyer. Then the Samaritan comes by and stops to help. Why is this significant? Those of you who are in our Bible study class on Thursday morning know the answer to this question, do we not? Why is it significant? Because the Samaritans and the Jews hate each other. We talked about in our Bible class when a Jew would travel from the north to the south, they would go out of their way to avoid Samaria so that they would not have to encounter Samaritans. They hated each other. They believed the other one was wrong in the way that they conducted their worship, and that their center of worship to be in this particular town and that particular town. These people did not like each other. But this Samaritan stops to help this Jew. Jesus really gets his point across very solidly for those people by using these particular actors. And Jesus ends his parable the way that he ends most of his teaching, by telling us to go. Here he says, go and do likewise. He tells us in his Grand Commission to go and make disciples. Go. Affirmative action. Go. But I think that Jesus does not only challenge us to go and do something. I think he also challenges us to see the world around us, and to live in that world. There will be no crossing the road. What does the Samaritan do? He is living in his world. He sees the world around him. He takes a look through his little window, and he sees an opportunity to do what Jesus would have us all do. Love your neighbor. The Good Samaritan does not turn away from his little window. He does not cross the road and ignore that which is going on around him. He stops. He cares. He loves. Folks, little windows are all around us. And all these windows show us opportunities for us to express God's love for all his children. And in so doing, we get that glimpse of how God can work in our lives and in the lives of others. These little windows are everywhere. You'll see them. You will recognize them when you see them. The opportunity to help a neighbor or a stranger who is also your neighbor. The opportunity to volunteer, to bring in stuff that we can send to West Virginia, maybe to volunteer at a school or at a food bank. And yes, the opportunity for worship and prayer. Look for these little windows. Do not turn away. Live, be in this world. Do not cross the road. Act in love, and act affirmatively. Amen. Let's continue our service this morning with the presentation of our